I pick the right one?
Yes. Your PowerPoint, correct?
Yes.
Yep, you're good to go.
Yes, I have a plethora of other things open on screen number 2, including the chat window, so hopefully I'll be able to monitor your questions.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you for coming to today's webinar. I feel privileged that you have decided to spend an hour with me. My name is Delora Bradish. I'm a senior consultant with Pragmatic Works. So basically, that means I just go where they send me. Just so you know, I'm a real human and not a robot. I am married to Jay, happily, for a long time. And my son, Nate, is 25, and that I was a young mom, so don't start making assumptions about me. But I love what I do. I work for Pragmatic Works because I felt while working for Hewlett-Packard that Pragmatic Works was truly an industry leader in the Americas in the Microsoft BI tool stack. And if I ever left HP, I knew I wanted to come and work for them. So HP had some reorganization, and I had a great opportunity a couple years ago, and I have not regretted it. Pragmatic Works is a small but very effective consulting company with the Microsoft BI tools. So let's get going because I have a lot to share with you today. So topic of conversation is really integration with Reporting Services 2016, PowerBI.com, and even Excel. So thank you, Liz, for that poll at the beginning, because I was actually a little concerned that not very many people would be interested in my Excel portion, but I've changed my mind. So I'll make sure we have some time for that at the end of the presentation. All right, so our talking points are 4 points today. I try to keep this simple. We're going to cover some critical concepts. We're going to talk about specialized tools for specific purposes. We're going to spin through some prerequisites. We're going to spend most of our time on what I call a 6-point demo. So basically, on my other screen, I have a Microsoft Word document open where I've actually typed out click steps for myself. So in an effort to make these demos go very well for you, but I have 6 demos for you. So let's get going. So critical concepts. I think the first thing we all need to understand, I'm just trying to communicate to you where I'm coming from, is that when working with Microsoft, there are specialized tools for specific report types. So I have a whole slide on that coming up. We also need to understand together that integration does not equal a single point of entry. That's a little disappointing, I realize, but Microsoft is coming closer to single point of entry by allowing us to publish Power BI reports to reporting services, but that's really not the definition of integration here. Power BI integration does mean pinning report parts to dashboards. Okay, we're not putting RDL files in PowerBI.com. We're just pinning report parts. For SSRS integration, that actually means saving, not really publishing, it's a save as. Power BI reports to an on-prem report server. That's currently in preview, but I actually have a demo for that today. A working demo that you can actually download for yourself if you have an Azure account. And last, there is a definite difference in PowerBI.com whether you're importing or uploading Excel data sources. So one is going to give you an Excel viewer and one is going to give you basically a data source. So we're going to look at that too. So just some critical concepts to understand. We're going to dive a little deeper. The first one is kind of a big one. So I'm looking at my clock and I'm going to give myself 5 minutes to get through this because we could actually spend 30 minutes. But oddly this year, I have been assigned some engagements where I feel like I'm kind of in a throwdown with our Microsoft competitors. And a lot of good tools out there. I know Microsoft is not the only, game in town. But there is something that is often missed in these comparisons of Power BI against other applications, and that is that the Microsoft tool stack, we have a lot going on here, but you have to pick the right tool for the purpose that you're trying to accomplish. So if you are talking about in memory, you're going to use Excel or Power BI. If you want direct query, you can do that in Excel, but through a standard data connection, which would not be Power Pivot. You can also do direct query, reporting services, and Power BI. So each one of these things has a place. Data mashups, for example, although I personally don't believe that that function should reside in reporting tools, but we will not go down that path. If you're in a position where you have no other choice, you can do that through Power Query. When you get into PowerBI.com, it looks almost identical to Power Query, but it isn't, and it's the query editor. When we're talking about pivot tables, Power Pivot and Interactive Power View, we're talking that those are Excel terminologies only. Paginated reports, that's a reporting services terminology. And that's your standard canned report as I think it, and that's probably an old term. But basically, columns. Page 1, page 2, I have a report header, I have a report footer. I have VBA scripts where I can really make that report do whatever I want it to do for me. If you want parameterized queries, and this is a frequent misconception, you can do that through macro in Excel or you can do that in SSRS. Power BI does not have parameterized queries. For gauges, charts, KPIs, and dashboards, you're actually looking at all three tools. And some people don't realize that SSRS has very powerful dashboard capabilities. However, they're not interactive. Now, my definition of interactive is not drill through to another RDL, okay? That's drill through to another RDL. Interactive means to me, my users can actually change part of that chart, okay? And they can pick different axes and affect the labels and all that kind of thing. So you're talking Power View there and PowerBI.com for sure. Globe maps, we all saw Power Map in Excel, really cool add-in. Power BI, it's not the same map, although you wouldn't know it to look at it. It almost looks identical. You don't have that globe map capability in SSRS yet. If that's important to you, that's definitely something to consider when saying, okay, what do I use for what purpose? And even though you can use multiple tools for the same purpose, I would strongly encourage you in what I call your BI roadmap to determine, okay, for interactive reports, we're going to use this. You know, for paginated reports, we're going to use this. You know, and try to, give a corporate standard to each one of these tools. So data-driven report subscriptions and scheduled delivery, let's not forget about that. But that's an SSRS feature only. You can refresh data sets in PowerBI.com, but they don't have scheduled delivery and data-driven report subscriptions like some of us have come to love in the reporting services environment. Love or hate. I know, I can already see the chat window lighting up. All right, data set refresh, like I said, in Power BI. Mobile reporting, mobile apps in Power BI. It's a built-in 2016 feature in reporting services. Let's not forget about security. Tacked down there at the bottom, user permissions and objects. When I look at reporting services 2016, it really reminds me a lot of SharePoint, obviously. I'm not obviously, but when you see it, if you have a SharePoint background, you'll go, oh, that looks like SharePoint. Because basically, you set your security at your top level and it cascades down to all your folders underneath. Same things happens in reporting services 2016, making things much easier to manage. PowerBI.com works differently. There's actually 6 security touch points, but I'm not going to go through those today. Let's move on. Did I keep it under 5 minutes? Prerequisites for integration. So you're going to need these 7 things. I'm not going to read them to you. I just put them in the slide. So if you want to replicate what you're going to see me do today, you need the 7 things I have listed there, and you'll see all of those working in just a few minutes. So we have a 6-point integration demo. We're going to start with pinning report parts in SSRS to Power BI dashboards. Then we're going to go into Power BI desktop and basically publish to an SSRS report server. I can't get rid of the word publish. I know it says save as. I really hope when it comes out of preview, it's under the publish button. Number 3, Power BI report added to SSRS report viewer. And then we're going to spend demos 4 and 5 are in Excel. And demo 6 is adding a Power BI desktop file through Get Data versus publishing via the Power BI desktop. All right, so let me look at a couple of the questions to see if I can answer some of these real quick. Oh, just is it started? Don't need to pay attention to that. All right, no technical questions. Liz, if I stop paying attention to the chat window and there's something you think I should answer, just please interrupt me. All right, so in the slide deck that you've downloaded, there's a couple slides that says, what happens when I? So again, this is just for your future reference. We're actually going to get in and let's do some hands-on right now. So I'm going to take away my slide deck and I'm actually going to pull in for you prerequisite number 1, which is a configuration manager. So here we go. This is most likely something your database administrator or report services administrator will need to do for you. But before you could integrate Power BI with reporting services, you need to go into the Reporting Service Config Manager and notice this nice little new menu down here, Option, and you need to basically configure it. This took 1 click for me and about 30 seconds, so it's really not that big a deal. And away we go. You know that Power BI is integrated with your SSRS environment when, let's get some Internet Explorer windows up. Here we go. When you go and you look at a report, let's look at sales summary that we're going to work with today. And if your report server is integrated with Power BI, you're actually going to see a little Power BI icon show up at the top, which is right here. So, how easy was that? So let's start first. So here we have SSRS 2016. Pragmatic Works actually has 2 webinars that are pre-recorded that you can watch if you're new to SSRS 2016. And both of them go through all the new features and fun things. I'm not going to do that today because I have 6 demos on integration and I'm going to be hard-pressed to get through those. But let me just encourage you that if I go to Faster Reporting Services and you want more information on navigating through the new UI, there are 2 webinars right on the Pragmatic Works website on demand that you can view for free. All right, so in Power BI, what I have is I have created a workspace called Demo Blank Canvas. Isn't that creative? And it has absolutely nothing in it. And the reason I did that is because when I go through each step, I'm actually going to delete what happened from the previous step so you can actually see what impact each action is having. If I just show you what I initially had planned for you, which was the SSRS integration demo, it gets a little messy. And then as we do each thing, it's hard to actually determine what was there beforehand and what is a result of the current action that we're trying to prove out. So we're going to go back to our blank demo blank canvas so we can actually see, okay, what happens when I do this, and we're going to see what happens there. So with our blank canvas ready, we do need a dashboard. So we're just going to say my new dashboard. Here we go. How easy was that? There's nothing there. So far, so good. All right, but now I have reporting services report and I want to integrate it with Power BI. So in my configuration manager, I've taken the necessary step. I have the icon, so all I need to do is click on it. And what it does is it tells me what I can pin. So I can't pin my chart here because see how when I hover over it, I have no yellow bar? I can only pin charts. So if I click on a chart, I then have to pick my workspace in PowerBI.com. I have to select my dashboard. I only have one, so that makes it easy. And I need to say whether I want this dashboard in Power BI to refresh hourly, daily, or weekly. So let's just go with daily because it's the default. I'm going to click Pin. And because this is a demo, it was successful. And here we are. So we're back to PowerBI.com, and we have an SSRS report part, as I think of it, in our dashboard. Life is good. But notice what I don't have. I don't have any reports. I don't have any data sets. So how is this going to refresh? Well, let's take a look because this will make sense to you, but it's food for thought. If I come into the report that I just pinned and I go to manage and I go to subscriptions, what do you think is there? You betcha. So what it does when I pin a report, and notice I could not select never refresh. I had to say daily, hourly. What was it, weekly? It does make a subscription. So something to really be aware of. If I come back here to my dashboard and I delete this, and I come back to my reporting services, let's just refresh it to make sure we have the latest and greatest. This is more for a benefit of your DBA. This is one thing that I don't like too much. My subscription lives on. So just showing this in a demo so you're aware, it's really a reporting services management, something to keep in mind for management. I will tell you now that if I delete this dashboard, or since I actually deleted my chart on that dashboard, I'm going to get an error when this fires. So that makes it a little easier for your reporting services admin to pick out those subscriptions that can be deleted and no longer in use, but I'm just letting you know, unfortunately, they do not delete themselves. So reporting services do not do any cleanup work when things change in PowerBI.com. All right, so let me show you one more example here about pinning reports. So if I go to this guy right here, I just pick a different report. And I'm like, I want to pin this table. You're going to get an error because there's no report parts to pin. So again, you can only pin charts and gauges. You can't pin tables or matrix objects from reporting services report. All right. Just going through my list of what I wanted to show you. One more thing. We're going to talk about stored credentials as well before we move off of here. So far we've learned a couple things. I can only pin an SSRS report part that is a chart. It creates a subscription, which does not go away when I take it out of PowerBI.com, but I like to almost capitalize a lot when I'm training or doing consulting on what can go wrong. And something else that can go wrong that you'll need to be aware of is you have to use a stored credential. So if you are not new to reporting services and your company does not have Kerberos, you're just shaking your head at me saying, yep, I get it. Because basically, when we talk about stored credentials, we're talking about hard coding a username and password in our data source. So if I were to come back in here to AdventureWorks, we can see, wrong guy, let's see. I want to go into a data set. I just picked one. Nope, give me just a second. I think I was in the right place before. It's got to be my data source. I didn't scroll down. Okay, so notice how I've hard-coded my credentials, and that's why I can even pin it to PowerBI.com. If I had used the viewer viewing the report, it would not work. If I have anything else selected down here, it does not work. So you do have to use stored credentials. That's just another FYI. Back to Power, let's get actually some things repinned just for fun. Now that my report's in cache, it should jump right up for me. Yeah, come on. There we go. So let's pin this fellow. I want to show you something else that's kind of neat. And we pin you. Wonderful. And someone should be asking me about this time, can I pin for multiple reporting services reports? And that answer would be absolutely yes. But now if I go back to Power BI, the only thing I just wanted to show you is, first of all, if I click on my report in Power BI, that's a shortcut back to reporting services, number one. Number two, if you're not familiar with Power BI, you can actually have a little fun here. Yeah, except you have to be careful that you're sizing something and you're not going back to reporting services, but basically you can arrange this however you want. So if you've worked with PowerBI.com, I'm not telling you anything new, but for those of you that are new, I thought you might want to see that as just a quick FYI before you move on to the next subject. All right, so demo number 2, let's add a Power BI file to the SSRS web UI, okay? So I wouldn't think so much. I don't feel that that's necessarily integration, but you know what? We don't live in a perfect world. And yeah. We, would like to have all the tools in the tool stack, but sometimes we just have reporting services. In fact, I was on the phone this morning with a client. They don't want to do PowerBI.com. They just want to do reporting services. So until I'm on demo 3, I'm going to show you the new preview. But right now, this is what you have to work with. So basically what you can do is you can add Power BI desktops to reporting services right now today. But this is a little deceiving. All this is just like an Excel file. It's just a file. If you look at what's new in PowerBI.com, you are going to actually see, and now I'm on a VM that I jumped to quickly, you're going to actually see that it looks the same, which I think is a little misleading. But when I click on these, I'm actually going to get a Power BI viewer in reporting services. Okay, but right now we're in demo 2 and we're talking about what we have to work with right now today. And today we can just add PBIX files to reporting services, and they act like a file. So you could add a Word document, you can add an Excel document, it doesn't matter. So what happens when I click on it, what it's going to try and do is download it, because a requirement then is that I need Power BI Desktop to open it. Just like if I click on Excel, I would need Excel to open this file. Or if I had Word, I would need Word. That's what we have to work with right now. So it looks integrated, but it really isn't. It just is treated like a file. So if let's just add a file for fun. So to add a new file to Reporting Services 2016, you just click your Upload button, and then you pick a Power BI report. So it can be direct query or it can be in memory. It doesn't matter, because Reporting Services is not going to instantiate that Power BI report. It's going to open Power BI Desktop or require you to do so, in which time that's when you're going to connect to your data sources. So let's just pick an in-memory report. And here we go. Let's get rid of this. Do you want to download? And I have a manufacturing report. So here it is. So what are my options? If I go to manage it, I can download it, replace it, move it, delete it. Notice I can't view it. So I have to download it to view it in Power BI. Again, I just wanted you to see that it's an option for today. So what's your worst case scenario? You can still share out your Power BI desktop reports through reporting services. People just have to have Power BI desktop on their desktop, just like they'd have to have Excel or Microsoft Word. So, okay, that's not, a big deal. It's not nice, like having a built-in viewer, but it still allows me to share my Power BI. I don't have to pay for PowerBI.com, and I still have the functionality of Power BI. So I do think it's an actual alternative, just something to think about, but I don't know if I would necessarily say it was integration. Do you follow me on that? That actually, I want to show you one other thing, and I hope I'm not getting too technical for some of you, but when I did that, I'm like, how does it share that? So just for fun, I wanted you to show you this. So in SQL Server Management Studio, I am in my 2016 instance. I am actually looking at my reporting services database, which I have analysis services expanded, so that's a little misleading. Not that, databases. Here we go. So I'm actually in here. And what I'm selecting from is a catalog. So this is just FYI. I would never come in here and modify this table myself, but I just wanted to show you where it's stored when you add a file like that. And here's my route schedule and memory report that I just put up. Let's see. All right. I'm halfway through. And we're only to demo 3. Okay, let's get going. Demo 3 is about integrating true integration, as probably you and I both think about it, reporting services and PowerBI.com. So now I'm actually going the other way. All right, I just showed you how to pin a report part to Power BI and have it display in a dashboard, but now we're going to reverse. Now I want Power BI reports to actually instantiate in reporting services. Don't make me download it because it's too inconvenient. Just show me the picture. All right, the only way I can show that to you today, because it is in preview, and in this slide deck, if you downloaded it, there is on the last page of towards the end of the slide deck, there are links. So if you want to replicate this, I gave you links where you can read about it. You can actually make a virtual machine for yourself, etc. But I just switched over to a remote desktop connection to my Azure VM. And what we have here is a series of Power BI reports, which look a lot like where I just came from. If I put these side by side, I would say, looks the same, okay, but not the same. Here, if I actually click on a report, it puts it in a viewer. How cool is that? Please tell me you're excited about this as I am. How did that happen? All right, I just clicked over to Power BI Desktop, and what I expected to do when I first came in here in preparation to speak to you today, I expected to click on my Publish button and see a reporting services URL. Not there. Don't be confused. That was just my workspace in PowerBI.com. Not there. So their version right now, and I hope this changes a little bit, of publishing to reporting services is actually a save as, and that's where you're going to find it. I do hope that it ends up under the Publish button, just for clarity, but right now in the preview you're saving as reporting services report, so you would have to know your URL. Just click OK, and now you need to give your new report a name. I'm going to just name it 3 so it actually works. And here it's saving to reporting services. If I say close and I come back here to reporting services, I will now see a sample report 3. And if I click on it, it's going to pop up in the viewer. So it pretty much is that simple. There's nothing more complicated about it for me to show you, except unfortunately it's still in preview. But I'm excited because I know it is going to happen, so between now and then I can still get my PBIX reports into reporting services as files, and after this new feature comes out in Reporting Services 2016, I couldn't tell you if there's going to be a way to turn a file into, well, you know what, I'm hoping, I'm just guessing here, that you'll be able to double click on that PBIX and it's actually going to put it in the report viewer. I hope you don't have to resave it or re-upload it, but I couldn't tell you. It would make sense to me that they would just let you now click on your file, and instead of making you download it, it would just instantiate in the viewer. That would be really sweet. Sweet, sweet. All right, so that's demo number 3. I'm about to move into the world of Excel. Does anybody have any questions for me about reporting services and PowerBI.com? Like, is it going to cost us any money to instantiate Power BI reports and reporting services? Is anybody else wondering that besides me? Okay.
Yes, 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 yes.
I don't have an answer for you. I'm hoping no, because does it cost us anything for Excel? No, you know? But if I were Microsoft, I would say, why then would anyone even want to pay for PowerBI.com? Let's answer that question. Just because you can instantiate Power BI reports in SSRS, let's just remind ourselves, that is surely not full functionality of PowerBI.com. Okay? And I could not find any information on pricing from Microsoft. I am hoping that it's, just a free feature. That's going to be my assumption as a user. That would be my expectation. But let's just be clear that it's not a replacement for PowerBI.com. You don't have all of the full feature functionality that you have in Power BI, such as gateways, such as when you come in here to get data. Content packs are not in reporting services. Your workspaces are not there. You have folders, so they are definitely different tools. Although I'm super excited about, I go to a lot of companies and what I call mahogany row. They're very nervous about the cloud. In fact, we can't even submit any kind of statement of work that has the word Azure in it sometimes, believe it or not. So I think that's understandable though. But my goodness, putting PBI reports and reporting services, really it does that kind of company a huge favor, right? It gets them a little closer to the newest technologies, but they don't have to take on what they perceive as cloud reporting. But still, you don't have all the functionality, and I'm not going to go through all the functioning at PowerBI.com, but I will say it's not a one-to-one. All you're doing is showing the report. You don't have everything else that's going on at PowerBI.com. All right, so let's talk about Excel. Excel is an interesting animal here. I'm going to clean up. Yes, I do want to delete my dashboard. I always want to start with a fresh slate, especially when we start working with Excel. So Excel is going to give you different results from whatever's in your Excel file. So that's kind of something I had to work to get my head around. For instance, if I have an Excel file that just has worksheets of data, that's going to come into Power BI one way. If I have an Excel file that has a Power Pivot model in it, that's going to have a different result. If I import versus upload, that's going to have a different result. If I have a Power View report in my Excel workbook, that's going to have a different result. So we're actually going to look at all three of those today. And in all three cases, we're going to click Get Data in PowerBI.com, and we're going to go to Files. We're going to go to Local File because we're going to make things simple. We're not going to try and pull something from the web. And first of all, let's make it break, okay? So the first thing you might try to do is import an unformatted file. Let me show you what that looks like. I'm going to pull this in and I'm going to import it. It should throw an error. Yes, it did. Good. When working with live demos, I like to demo by PowerPoint, so unexpected things don't happen to me. But let me show you what that file looks like and why it did not work. Let's see. Here it is. So it's simply unformatted. So I don't, basically Power BI does not recognize these as being tables. I have not formatted them as tables. If I want to pull in worksheet data into Power BI, it has to look like this. I'm going to close this. I'm going to show you a properly formatted Excel file. Very simple. Simply put it into tables. So you select your raw data, you do an insert, and on the insert menu you have a table function. So that's all that Power BI is requiring. That is what threw the error in my previous example. So let's import some data that actually is going to work. So we go back to Get Data, Local File, and let's go to our formatted fella here. Come on, Power BI, you can do it. In my notes during this time, I'm supposed to be showing you the formatted file, but I got a little ahead of myself. Now last night, this is taking probably about 5 seconds. I promise you it will come. All right, while that's thinking about it, oh, here we go. I'm going to show you a Power Pivot model, but that's okay. Almost done. Success. All right, so let's look what happened. First of all, I didn't clean up after myself last night, so just a moment here. We did not pull in that report. What happened here? I now have a dashboard of a sort. Okay, that's a dashboard. Okay, getting used to that. And I have a data set. I don't have a report. So if I click on what they're calling a dashboard object, basically what it's doing, it's taking me my data set. So let's see if this even works. Let's say that I want to actually sum things up by class. Let's do this. Show me some numbers. Okay, so what I wanted you to see is that these tables are not related. Okay, so I'm getting the same number multiple times. And I'm not in Power BI Desktop. I don't have a way to relate them. All right, so honestly, I'm not sure why you would do this. If you were in Power BI Desktop, you would pull in this same data set, and then you could relate the tables together and make meaningful information. If you're in PowerBI.com, it allows you to do it, but if anyone has any creative use for something like this, do share. I guess you already could have exported your data to a view, correct? So I actually have that. So notice in my summary, it actually is a view. And now if I go by class, see my numbers are changing, but that's just because I used basically I had a denormalized view that I put into this worksheet. So, okay, so this is actually working, but this is going to create some additional work on the back end, right? I need a view that already knows about joins and is actually returning dimension attributes with facts in the same data set. Usable there. All right, I'd like to do the same thing. I want to clean this up because I want to show you something else. going to have to do a little refresh. All right, so I'm back to my clean slate. If I come back here and I click on Files and I actually choose an Excel workbook that has a Power Pivot model in it, and just for time, I'm actually going to pick this one as a Power View report because Power View is always based on Power Pivot models. So I can demo two things at one time. And if I open my copy, while that's pulling in for you to look at, you can see that I just imported an Excel workbook that has a pivot table, a Power View report, and Power View is always based on a Power Pivot model. So, option 2. All right, my relationships are already built in my Power Pivot model. Life is good. So this is a workbook that we just imported. Let's take a look at what it did. All right, so my data set's ready. I now have a dashboard. Oh, look what I have. I have a report. At first pass, it looks like it didn't work. It did work. On a report, what it doesn't do is pull in that pivot table. Okay, what Power BI is set to do, however, is pull in that Power View report. So the good thing about this is if your company has come up from Excel 2010 and 13 and they've used Power View, you can still leverage those Power View reports in PowerBI.com, and that's a real plus. A lot of times when we change technologies like that, we all can possibly remember SQL 2000 to 2005 and rewriting all of our data transformation packages into SSIS. That's not happening here, which I am I'm highly appreciative of. If you spent time with Power BI, Power View reports, you don't lose that work with PowerBI.com, and this is actually how it's done. All right. Let me show you one other thing if you're not familiar with PowerBI.com. No matter what you import, any version of Excel with Power Pivot, with Power View, just with worksheets, whatever it looks like, you can do quick insights, which is kind of cool. And what it does is it basically looks at your data and it tries to find things that between measures and facts that have in common. And basically it's going to create a bunch of charts for us, which is kind of neat. Let's give it about a minute and it should come up. It usually doesn't take too long if your data set isn't that large. So here's a bunch of reports that I didn't write. This is the quick insight tool just saying, hey, how might things relate together? And I can take each of these and I can pin it to my dashboard. So here we go. Pin. Now if I go back to my dashboard, I still have this kind of odd kind of data set icon. I think of it as an icon, but I don't know what else to call it. It's not a report, but if I click on it, I'm going to go to data sets. But now I have these quick insights as part of my dashboard. So just a little interesting plus when pulling data from Excel or actually any source. Power BI will do that for you. All right, so demo 5, and let me check my time. I have 15 minutes. We're going to upload Excel data to Power BI. So we just did imports, okay? So let's clean up here a little bit. And if I only have time to show you one more thing, I want to show you this. And it's the difference between importing and uploading. So upload your Excel file. Notice the demo so far, I've chosen to import. Now we're going to upload. And basically what should happen here is it should actually pull in what I think of is the Excel file itself. See, pulled in my workbook. And what do I have? I have no dashboard. I have no data set. But what I do have is the Excel viewer. So option 2, when you're working with Power View reports that you already have, or even just plain workbooks. Notice I now have my pivot table. All right, before I didn't have a pivot table because I imported it. If I upload it, that's like uploading an actual file. And it's actually using the Excel viewer to show me that actual Excel file. So that's a definite difference. And it might be something you talk about internally to say, okay, are we going to upload these or are we going to import those? You know, what do you want as your result? Because it definitely will give you 2 different results. Let me show you a quick arrow, by the way. I'm kind of a Chrome user. So here's my notes from class that I'm working off of. If you don't use Internet Explorer, you're actually going to get a notice that Power View reports require Silverlight. So at that point, I generally just flip over to Internet Explorer, but just kind of be aware of what is going on there. All right, let's jump back to the slide deck if we could. All right, so what happens when? I'm not going to read these to you, but we should have just gone over most of these. Pin an SSRS report to Power BI dashboard. These 5 things should be your expected result. If you add a PBIX report to reporting services, you should expect these 5 results. If you publish or save as a PBIX to an SSRS URL, just be aware of these expected results as far as opening and editing. Here's a chart in the stack that kind of gives you a comparison between PBI report as a file and publishing a PBI report to reporting services. In red is really what matters. You open one on the desktop, you open one in the viewer, the data source is embedded. This is something I did not show you. The data source is editable, just like a deployed reporting services report. So you can actually change the source, you can change the login, and there is some definite additional functionality there. Where things go wrong, you can't pin a Power BI report object that's not a chart. You did not use stored credentials. Again, easy fix, just letting you know ahead of time what you need to look out for. Now when it comes to Excel, what happens when you import Excel data versus a Power Pivot model? Basically, I try to itemize your expected result here, but I'm not, again, going to read them to you. We already went through them in a demo together. And what happens when it's a worksheet versus a Power Pivot model? What's the difference between a upload? See, notice I've changed up here. I'm uploading on this slide, and on the previous slide, I'm importing. One last thing to show you, if I could, let me go back and find Internet Explorer. Something that, you know how when, or maybe you don't know, but in reporting services you publish RDLs from Visual Studio Solution. But you also can import them by hand. So you can add an RDL to reporting services. Here, we can also do the same thing. So, let's see. If I want to get data and I'm back to files and a local file, I can choose a PBIX, okay, if I don't want to publish it from Power BI Desktop. But keep in mind, if I pick a direct query, I have to have my gateway set up, meaning I have to have pre-configured my configuration to my source. If I pick in memory, and just for the sake of example, we're going to do that now, it will come in just like if I was in Power BI Desktop and clicked my Publish button. So pretty much I just wanted to bring to your attention 2 ways to get your desktop reports in here. Success, thank you. So actually what I just uploaded was my route schedule and memory report. So again, I don't know if that really falls under the integration umbrella, but it is a different way to get to the same point. All right, so back to the slide deck where things go wrong with Excel. You can't import data from an Excel workbook that's not formatted properly. Schedule refresh only works against Excel data imported from a Power Pivot data model. And here are some links to some additional information. So Liz, did I do okay?
You always do okay, Delora.
Well, am I ahead or am I behind? I actually don't have a clock with
Oh, it's 11:53, so perfect.
Oh, hooray. Okay. Because when I'm showing my my slide deck, I don't actually have a clock to look at. So good. I do have some extra slides at the end, by the way. These are just Delora's standbys. In case I had some questions, I need to go to them, such as the blueprint, the purpose of BI, and if anyone wanted to talk about tabular versus multidimensional. But we can pretty much ignore those.
Okay.
So I'm at the end of my presentation. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Yeah.
Did I confuse the issue? Are you excited about these new features? Can you use them at your company? I hate just talking to myself.
No problem. I'll start reading off some questions then. Can we use Excel services in SSRS 2016 on-prem like we used to in SharePoint?
So I think what you're asking me,
They want to know if you can use Excel in SSRS 2016 like you used to be able to in SharePoint.
yes. So here I have an Excel workbook, right? So if I click it and I say open it, oh, I was going to try and download it. I know what you're saying. You wanted an Excel viewer and reporting services 2016. And I'm not seeing it there. That actually surprises me. So good question.
All right.
It's downloading it. So the answer is going to be no, but I know what you wanted. You wanted an Excel viewer just like you have here. Right?
I think so. There's
Excel
a lot.
Online, you're looking for that over here.
Yes, that's exactly what they mean.
Yep. And I would expect, and see, it just put me in downloading, and it actually is stuck. It's not letting me close it. It's not letting me do anything. Let's get a different instance of it up. What are my options? Let's take a look. You know, that is a surprise to me. I think I assumed that when I opened up the Excel workbook that I would have an Excel viewer, and I don't. So the answer would be no, regretfully. Next question. Not happy about that.
Can you integrate multiple Power BI accounts with SSRS?
Well, it really is not account specific. Okay, so let's go back to, let me get my presentation off my desktop. Yeah, okay, so you're going to stop responding. That's fine. We're going to go over here. It wasn't account specific to really start with, but are you talking about the credentials? Because the credentials are hard-coded, right? So you can have 3 different reports working on 3 different data sources that use 3 different credentials, but that has nothing to do with Power BI. Here, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question.
Well, maybe we'll come back to it. Maybe we'll get some more. Do the SSRS reports charts, can they be defined? Okay, I don't understand that question. So
Okay.
never mind.
Okay.
Okay, someone already asked that. When will we be able to deploy the actual Power BI report on SSRS 2016?
The preview is out. Microsoft has not given any kind of date indication for when it's going to actually become a feature. So I don't have an answer for that. All I know is that it's currently in preview, and they haven't said when. And let me just close a couple things here before I start losing memory. If you go back to the slide deck that you downloaded, you can read more about that on the technical preview of Power BI to SSRS. And that information isn't there. So I'm not trying to put you off or not to answer your question. We just don't know right now.
Okay. When showing Power BI reports in SSRS reporting server, is the Power BI viewer on-prem?
Yes. Yes, this is part of reporting services. So even though I'm on a virtual machine, this is a native local instance, okay? And that that SSRS viewer is part of reporting services, on-prem for sure.
If we, hold on. All right. Will the community features for Power BI be available in the SSRS viewer?
Okay, so the community, all right, you've lost me on community features for Power BI. So let's go to Power BI. So you're talking about features that are in Power BI here. Are they going to be available in SSRS? That would really surprise me because they're giving you a Power BI viewer, and to me that's a gift, right? I can't even fathom that they would ever try to replicate PowerBI.com into reporting services because they're trying to, this is like a profitability area for Microsoft. They still want you to use PowerBI.com. I'm not Microsoft, but I can't even fathom that they would ever give that away in reporting services. I can't really believe, and I'm thrilled, though, that they're giving us a viewer.
I
hope that was the question.
I think this is a good question that a lot of people might want to know. Can you do all this in older versions of SQL Server?
Oh, no. This is Reporting Services 2016 only, native web portal. Now, let me say, in older versions of reporting services, I would think, because if I recall, both definitely SharePoint, but even the native install, you could still add files. So add whatever file you want, right? Word, Excel, Power BI, PBIX file, but that to me is an integration. That's file storage. So no, what you saw in their preview, that's definitely 2016 only.
All right, well, we are just past noon. I know there's a lot of questions we didn't get to, so I will send those questions to Delora. She's always good about doing a follow-up blog or whatnot for us. As always, this session was recorded, and you will receive an email tomorrow with a link to the recording. If you haven't already, before we close out, her PowerPoint is in the handout section of the GoToWebinar control panel. If for some reason you don't get it before we close out, or if you have any other questions, please feel free to email me, Liz. I'll be happy to share it with you, or I can send your questions on to Delora. So thanks everybody for joining us. We hope to see you next week for our session on temporal tables. It'll be the last session of the year. And thank you, Delora, for hosting today.
You're welcome, Liz. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.